people on stream watching ready.
That's good.
So,
Excellent.
good start. Yeah, Mike was saying about starting at around quarter.
Yeah. Do you think, can we do a chat thing to tell them? We'll kick off in a minute. Do you have to message? Does it just pick
Speak
it
to
up?
camera, it picks it up. Yeah,
What is it?
the camera's got its own microphone.
Ah, okay.
So
Well,
it
there you
picks
go.
it up and it's going to the
From
stream.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. We'll start in about 10 minutes, everybody, just so you know. Perfect. Thank you.
On this side, I think somebody's trying to tell us something. Oh, sorry. I've got to sit on it. I know,
I'll sit down, yeah, I know.
Great. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Trinity. Welcome to our Growing Hope Information Evening. If you want to grab a seat quickly for me, and we'll make a start. I'm trying to feel like the church is going to tip over. You're all sat on one side, feeling all lopsided. It's where the cake is. That makes sense. That makes sense. Great. Well, thank you all very much for coming out on a coldish but very dark evening. It's really, really wonderful to have you here as we kind of explore and look at what a Growing Hope clinic will look like here in York. It's really, really exciting. It's something new for us as a church. It's quite a big step for us as a church, and we're hoping that other churches will be getting involved in that as well. Did I say my name was Mike? My name's Mike. I'm the vicar here. I don't really know what I'm doing, but it's really, really wonderful to be hosting this event and to have Naomi here as well. So Naomi Fox is the founder of Growing Hope, and we're going to hear a bit more from her later on. It says on my sheet of paper that Naomi gave me that now is the time for me just to tell you a little bit about how we got to this point in terms of why we think having a clinic in York would be a really good idea. So for us as a church, for Holy Trinity, we came, Emma and I, my wife, and I came to Holy Trinity 2.5 years ago, and we came with a little team of people. We planted out of St Michael of Belfry and grafted in to the existing congregation here. And really quickly we found, through the group that came with us and the community that was already here, that there was a real heart for fostering and for adoption and for accessibility and for enabling people with additional needs to engage with church as much as they possibly could. And that was quite amazing, because I had done my dissertation on helping people to engage with church who have specific learning difficulties. And wherever I'd been kind of previous to here, really, it always felt like quite hard work. And I came here and all of a sudden people got it, and I was like, oh, it's amazing, that's great. And that was kind of like step one on God's plan, really. And as we've journeyed over these past 2.5 years that we've been here, we've met more and more people from the wider community who have children with additional needs, or who have grown-up children with additional needs, or who have additional needs themselves. And I think one of the catalysts for us wanting to really do something was when we were speaking to a couple of mums that we met through the toddler group who had children with fairly significant additional needs. And they were talking about a WhatsApp group they were part of other grown-ups with children. And they said that some of the mums on that group didn't really go outside, didn't really leave the house that much, because it was just easier to stay inside than it was to go out and deal with the looks and the comments and the judgment and things like that. And it just broke our heart. And I remember Emma and I chatting afterwards and saying, you know, we want to do something. It's great that as a church we want to be welcoming and our Sunday services are welcoming, but what more is there that we can do if people don't even want to leave the house? And so we looked into other things that we could do. One of them was an accessible church service, which is kind of like a bridging the gap. If people don't feel that they can come, even though they would be welcome on a Sunday morning, hopefully they feel that they can come to that because it is for them. And actually, if your child is running up and down the aisle and lobbing things and doing whatever, fine. So are 3 others. Great. If they just need to sit in the quiet room and enjoy the space there, great. Lovely. They're in church. They're having a positive experience of church. And then just before the summer, we were invited to a dinner that was hosted by Growing Hope, and Naomi talked about Growing Hope, about the charity, and about what they do in setting up these free clinics that offer therapy to children with additional needs and young people with additional needs. And I turned to Emma, who was there with me, and I said, this is the thing. This is something that we can do as a church. This is something that I know our church will get behind. And I can't imagine any other church in the city going, that's a terrible idea. Why would you want to do that? This is something that the whole of the churches in York, I think, will want to support. And so hopefully there are quite a number of churches represented here, and hopefully more others as well will catch up online and will hear about it and want to get involved too. And there are many, many ways to get involved. This isn't just a Holy Trinity project. This is something that we hope will be partnered and a project that we can do alongside other churches across the entire city. So that's a little bit about the journey, that's a bit about our heart and why we wanted to get involved with Growing Hope. So hopefully that's been helpful in kind of illustrating a little bit about why you're here this evening. But we're going to watch a video now that is all about Growing Hope, to tell you a little bit more about what the charity does, who they are.
However, waiting lists are frustratingly long and private therapy is simply not an option for most families. We aim to bridge the gap between the need and the availability of therapy services. At Growing Hope local clinics, we support children with learning, physical, mental health or undiagnosed needs. We help children like Adam, who has autism. Occupational therapy has helped him to focus for longer, get dressed and engage in play with his mum again. Therapy is tailored to the child and can also include physio, speech and language and music therapy or counselling. We want everyone to know that they are seen, heard and belong. We grow hope for families through taking the time to ask parents like Lydia how they are and within sessions equipping them with strategies to help at home. Additional needs affect the whole family. Our courses create a safe place for parents and siblings to process their experiences and find new hope. We believe that Jesus brings hope even in the most difficult situations. We share this, asking families if there's anything they'd like to say about in the sessions, with no pressure if they don't want to. Our clinics are open to individuals of all faiths and backgrounds. We always stop to listen to families, doing our best to stand with them in hard times. We have a vision to see 20 clinics set up in partnership with local churches across the UK by 2030. We believe the local churches are so well placed to support children and young people with additional needs and their families. We want to share the hope that Jesus brings to everyone's lives, and you can do that through supporting us through your mission giving, through providing groups such as our When Comes Change course or our siblings group, which you can run from the local church community, or through partnering with us to set up a Growing Hope clinic that provides free therapy. You can find out more by going to our website, growinghope.org.uk/churches.
Great. So I'm going to invite Naomi up and we're going to have a little chat, and you can watch us all have a little chat.
Thank you very much.
Great. So Naomi, do you want to introduce yourself first of all?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Naomi. I am a children's occupational therapist by background, so I look at all the things that kids do every day, whether that's washing, dressing, eating, playing, writing, concentrating, see what they might find difficult, why they might find it difficult, and how I can help make it easier. And I'm the founder and CEO of Growing Hope. So I founded Growing Hope in February, well, we started our first clinic in February 2018, founded it in December 2017, and so we're almost 7 years old, but I get to lead a wonderful team, and our vision is to have 20 clinics by 2030. Like we were saying, we've got 4 at the moment and rapidly growing to 7, I think, or 8 in the next few months or so into the new year, so it's very exciting.
Amazing. Sounds like you're very busy at the moment.
Yeah, very busy at the moment.
That's great. So what led you to start Growing Hope?
I think there is just so much need. We know, and there are there are some flyers and bits and pieces on your pews, but we know that 1 in 6 children in the education system in the UK at the moment have additional needs. So that is a lot of children, high percentage of children, and yet waiting lists are currently like 2-3 years plus long. I often see families in Connect who are like, oh yeah, we've been on the waiting list for ages, no one's seeing us, and we don't know what to do. And actually so often families say to me, like, the support you've been able to give us is life-changing, which always feels like, you know, it's a bit of a tricky strap line. So if you say we do something that's life-changing, people are like, really? But actually, for parents to have the opportunity to be seen, I think makes a really big difference to so many families. So I started Growing Hope because I was working in private practice just before I started it, and I literally was working with families who had bailiffs knocking on their door, and yet they still came and paid for private therapy because they were so desperate for support. And I'd spent time in Thailand and India and seen there the local church essentially step in the gap and provide this free therapy for families as part of church life and advice for families. And I kind of came back to the UK thinking, like, why do we not do something like that in the UK? And at that time, my vicar was talking about God saying, you know, what's in your hands? What have you got as the skills that can bring change? And I thought, actually, you know, I'm an occupational therapist, the church is well positioned as a resource. There are so many healthcare professionals, you know, within therapy practice, like, why are we not stepping in this gap? And that led to this kind of vision or idea of parents being able to come into a space where they would walk through into a room and burdens would drop off them, their kids would be able to do small things that actually do make a big difference in their lives, and also that we'd be able to share the hope of Jesus at the same time.
Amazing, that's great. And what would a clinic in York look like?
Yeah, great question. Well, it's very exciting to get to be here and to be partnering with you guys and being like, yeah, this is something we're going to do. We want to gather people and start looking at how we set that up. So it looks like whatever the trustees decide that it looks like, so within the parameters of the Growing Hope model. So Growing Hope, we as a national charity exist in order to support the local church and the local charity to be able to run as easily as possible. So I'll explain a bit more of the details of the structure later. But essentially, we set up a local charity, a local Growing Hope here in York, that supports children aged 0 to 18 with a range of additional needs. So when we talk about additional needs, we talk about needs which are wide-ranging. So it could be a physical need, a learning need, a mental health need, an undiagnosed need. Anything which is impacting on someone's ability to participate in activity is the kind of need that we support with. So I know that you guys have a lot of children who are either fostered or adopted, and as well as lots of other children with other additional needs. And we want to be a place where any child, whatever their needs, can receive support, whether that's, you know, a diagnosed need or a not diagnosed need. And essentially the way that it works is you start with a clinic manager who leads the clinic, and that clinic manager could be any healthcare professional. So it could be an occupational therapist, a speech language therapist, a physio, a counsellor, a music therapist, an art therapist, someone who's able to lead that clinic and then provide that therapy. But the idea is that once you start, you can then raise more funds and grow that into a multidisciplinary service. So if you look at our clinics in King's Cross and High Wycombe, for example, both of those clinics, King's Cross is the oldest one, so that's been around for about 6 years. High Wycombe was only set up a couple of years ago. High Wycombe now has speech therapy, occupational therapy, art therapy and music therapy that they provide for children and people in their area. So the idea is that actually you can become this space where families who have experienced this kind of brick wall in terms of getting support they need can get the help that they really need.
Amazing, thank you very much. So, I mean, yeah, that's the end of my official questions. We're going to hear more from you later on, aren't we?
Yeah, you can carry on though if you like. Don't mind.
No, it's not on the paper.
Okay.
It's not on the paper. I can't do it.
That's fine.
But yeah, I mean, it sounds amazing. You know, all the things that the clinics can offer, and the hope, you know, that can be offered as well. And the idea that people come in, and it's not just a place where they can have their physical needs met, but spiritual needs as well. And I know you guys offer prayer, you know, at the end of every session. And most of the time, you know, it's people take you up on it, which is just wonderful, and it really shows that, that caring heart of God in a really practical way. So it's amazing.
Yeah. And I was going to tell a couple of stories which I forgot to, so can I tell my stories?
No, you've got any stories in
Yeah, I have actually. Just forgot momentarily to tell them. And I think in terms of what it could look like, I think what I wanted to do is just tell you a couple of stories so you can picture it, and we will see a couple of stories as well. But one child that I worked with was a 12-year-old girl who has a diagnosis of autism, ADHD, which is quite high functioning. And she came to us with her mum, and she was like, I'm really struggling to sleep. Like, I can't sleep. It's really awful. Her family were really impacted by it. They couldn't sleep as well because she was up like a lot of the night. And so we worked together on different strategies that would help her with her regulation, was essentially like helping her body feel calm so that she could then be able to fall asleep and like stay asleep for the whole night. And we talked about different ways we can do that and how movement helps our body and lots of different bits and pieces. And anyway, I talked her through a plan, we wrote a plan down together. She went home and like created all these resources and finished off her plan. And they came back 2 weeks later, I think it was half term or something in between, and Mum was like, you wouldn't believe it. We are sleeping through the night and it's absolutely mad, and we've just like suddenly had this change. And I think for whatever reason, this little girl doesn't always happen like that. It was an amazing transformation for her. But what was amazing was that she felt motivated and empowered to be able to make those decisions for herself, and her mum had supported her in that, and it had transformed her sleep, which was amazing. And so I have lots of children I've worked with who have things like that where something changes quite quickly, and then some children where it takes much longer. But just last week I was with a group of children in our How We Can Connect who all have autism, and they're all mainly non-verbal, so have quite high level of needs. And we run a group with them, and the first couple of group sessions have been pretty busy, I would say, and it's been really hard to get a sense of calm with the children, because part of what we're learning is how we be in a group, how we move from one activity to another. And what was amazing was that last week, week 3, in the group, we had this amazing moment when they were all sitting with their parents, and being with parents is a really important part of what we do at Growing Hope, like knowing parents' names, enabling parents to be a part of what we're doing. But in this group, we had this moment where we were doing what's in the bag. For any of you who know attention autism, we were doing, I've got something in my bag, I wonder what it is. And they all were able to engage in that activity and take it in turns to look at the object that I was holding up to them. And it was an amazing moment, because actually there was like a stillness and a quiet in the room that we hadn't had since when we started the group, which was super encouraging. So that's just 2 stories for you, but of children that I've seen where it's had a big impact.
Amazing, thank you very much. So we've heard a couple of stories. We've heard the heart kind of this church. We've heard Naomi's heart about why we started, and we're going to watch another story on video now.
Thanks.
Without the support of Growing Hope, we would still be waiting for someone to see us, someone to realise that we're there, and I think it would still be feeling very helpless and probably hopeless at times. Kid is 6, and when he was 2.5, he was diagnosed with autism. At the moment, he's normal speaking, and he attends a specialist school in Ireland, where after diagnosis, we were pretty much left to our own devices and we went into lockdown, and it almost felt like an house had been forgotten. We didn't know where to start. He's eating, toileting, difficult with regulating his emotions. I didn't know where to start as a parent with the thoughts and feelings that I was having around having a child with different needs. It just all felt quite overwhelming. So when we found out about Growing Hope, I didn't really know what to expect from a small charity that they could offer. But when we went along and they talked a bit about what they do, it just felt like it was support for Caden, which we desperately needed, but it was also support for our whole family. We felt visible, and that's the way to help us. Caden has access to quite a lot of different therapy sessions. He really engaged with music therapy. It was amazing to see, practical skills like turn taking and just how to articulate himself. I feel like Caden is much more confident in letting us know what he wants, and I think we don't feel we're second guessing it, we just know it's a process that we feel more confident as parents that we can help him with what he needs. I know it sounds so cliche to describe home, but I feel as a mom so much more hopeful for his future. I celebrate Caden in his own way, I can dream for Caden in a different way. I can see that he's going to have a good quality of life, but that doesn't stop him with his diagnosis. Having a child with additional needs is life-changing, but it isn't all negative. It's amazingly positive. Caden has made us all more kinder, more empathic, more compassionate. You know, we just better people. We're proud of being alive.
Wonderful. Claudine, can I invite you up to the front? Thank you. I'm going to get you a microphone. There we go. You can see Claudine's already wearing the merch. Top mark, Claudine, you've turned up dressed in the right gear. So, Claudine, you went on a Growing Hope course, didn't you?
I did.
Great. First of all, that's why Claudine's going to speak to us. But do you want to introduce yourself first of all? Tell us a bit about you and your kind of family.
Okay, so I'm Claudine Palser. I'm originally from South Africa and served 23 years in the British Army. So I now work at the Balfour as a counselling service manager. Praise the Lord. So always trying to shoot with me, which is always a bonus. So I have a son. He's almost 9. So very important to know that he's almost 9. He's called Eben. And he was diagnosed with autism when he was 7 after waiting for 2 years on the waiting list. And he probably has another possible diagnosis of dyspraxia. And we kind of struggled as a single parent family, really. All the support really for us is back in South Africa. So things became quite challenging where he would start running away at forest school, which is obviously quite dangerous in all the tools world. He was starting to become a threat to other children, to himself. So that was before the diagnosis. So it was really, really challenging for me as a full-time working parent at the time in the army, receiving phone calls from his school at the time that he was in, that he was refusing to come out of the playhouse. He wasn't sleeping, like he shared with the other family. And it was just really challenging. We can't get an extra diagnosis possibly at the moment for dyspraxia because we're on a long waiting list for the NHS. So integrated sensory assessment or sensory integrated assessment privately costs about £1,500. He's had therapy for 2 years, play therapy at £55 a week. And it's just really more sustainable. So for us, you know, with the idea of kind of family that Growing Hope caters for really, to be honest with you.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing all that. That's really helpful for us to hear, and I know that's not always easy necessarily to share, especially not in front of a group. So thank you for that. So I mean, you've already kind of touched upon it, but why don't you tell us first of all about the course that you went on and what happened and what it meant to you?
So it was only a few Mondays ago that I travelled to London by myself, which is quite unusual, and I have my little sidekick on the way with me. And that took a great amount of reassurance, planning, support being put in place in York. For my son, there was a lot of tears. There was probably messaged me about 150 times, but I felt called by God to attend When Dreams Change course to become a facilitator. And so basically, it's a 4-week course for parents and carers to be able to reflect on what it's like having children with additional needs. We learned about a lot of helpful tools and techniques that as a facilitator can teach to the parents to help come to terms of, that their dreams are essentially going to be different to what they expected. And the tools are really useful because it's so practical, it's really relevant, and there's an undertone of biblical story in it as well, which I really liked.
Yeah. Amazing, that's great. So obviously there's this course for kind of adults. what else would you imagine that a clinic in York, how would that benefit you and Eden?
Well, not just ourselves, but it would be a godsend. I'm kind of have a great network of other parents that's in a similar situation with me in terms of the cost of, OT support. Thankfully, my son's needs speech and language therapy. You know how verbal he is. But free counselling would also be amazing. Free OT support for my son, who he says to me, I'm probably dyspraxic, which, he's so bright. But it would be a godsend because there is a real significant gap in support for those specific needs in York. And I can send out to that and for the people that I'm in touch with as well. It would be absolutely amazing. It would be inundated with referrals, I can tell you that.
Amazing, yeah. Thank you so much. That's the end of our kind of scheduled questions for you, so thank you so much for sharing. Can we give Claudine a round of applause?
We're doing a fundraiser for Growing Hope this weekend, and my son will be walking 30 miles on a Christian pilgrimage.
Oh,
yes, that's why I have to teach them.
Well, there you go. Absolutely, that's a worthy club. Very good. One on you. That's great. So, we've heard some of the things that Claudine's gone on this course. When Dreams Change, it's for adults and grown-ups. We've heard a little bit about the therapies on offer that can have such a massive effect. And I know that there are courses for siblings as well that are similar to the When Dreams Change to help siblings of those children with additional needs to kind of process all of that and work out what that means for them as well. So there's so much that these clinics can offer and the Growing Hope can offer. So and amazing to hear your story as well, Claudine. So thank you again for sharing that. Great, Naomi, you're up.
Amazing, thanks. I'm sitting there as a clicker.
Yeah. Sit down.
Yeah, have a nice seat. Great. Just going to check that it works. There we go. So you've heard a little bit about us, but hopefully what I want to do now is just dive into a bit more detail for you to explain what it looks like having a clinic here in York, and then how you guys can get involved, or how anyone that's watching can get involved, and what that can look like as well, and where we go from here. So, as we said, the things that we do are champion accessibility, provide free therapy for children and young people with additional needs in partnership with churches across the UK. And what that looks like is we bring hope to children through the provision of free therapy, whether that's occupational therapy, physio, music therapy, speech language therapy, counselling. We grow hope for families where hope has been lost through isolation or rejection. And we do that through things like the When Dreams Change course, like the siblings groups, but also through parent training, through Circle of Security, which is an attachment research-based parenting course that we run. And then we share hope in Jesus because we believe that he brings hope even in the most difficult situations, and that underpins everything that we do. And the way that we do that is we offer to pray for every child and young person that comes to our clinics, like Mike was mentioning earlier. And we do that in a way that's really low pressure. So we share with every family that we believe Jesus brings hope. We'd love to pray if they'd like to, but there's no pressure if they don't want to pray. And we ask them the question, is there anything you'd like to pray about? And we do that because we know that in a therapeutic relationship there's often a bit of a power dynamic going on. So we want to make it really easy for people to say no if they feel uncomfortable, but also to be able to say yes if they would like it. And for me, it's such a privilege to get to offer that service to families, because we know that people are whole beings. We know that spiritual well-being is a part of who we are in our identity as well, and being able to journey with families through whatever they're going through in terms of any situation they're in, whether it's a sister who's going through cancer, or their child's not sleeping, or they just want to pray for the development for their child. I often have parents talk to me and say, I just want you to pray that we can work out what the next step is for my child. Like, they've spent a session kind of chasing their child around or trying to support them to engage. And I think for some parents that can be an overwhelming feeling, and it's amazing to be able to speak hope and value over families in that situation. So I wanted to tell you a bit about who we are as a charity. These are our values. So these values span right across our national charity and across each of our local charities as well. So hope, we believe that Jesus brings hope even in the most difficult situations. Community, we want everyone to know that they are seen, heard and can belong. And that's so important to us at Growing Hope. So many families, again, turn to me and they're like, in Connect, I'm often like, how are you? How are you doing? And they're like, oh, no one ever asks me how I am. And I'm like, no, I genuinely care about how you're doing. And we make a point of making sure that our therapists know parents' names, can really engage with them, so that we're not just being like, oh, Mum, could you do blah, 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 but we're really making sure that the whole family knows that they're seen. And then we want to be courageous, innovative and generous in the way that we do all the things that we're doing, and that's an important part of how we live out our values as Growing Hope in the way that the model works. So this is how it works. So our vision is to have 20 clinics across the country by 2030. At the moment our clinics are in King's Cross, Brockley, High Wycombe and Maidstone, just opened this week. We're about to set up a clinic in Redbridge. We've been interviewing for that clinic manager position. We're also about to set them up in Southampton and Bridgewater and hopefully up here is the plan. So trying to, support local churches essentially, and as a national charity, it's kind of three-way collaboration. So as a national charity, we act as a vehicle of support in order that local churches and local charities can be set up and have the support they need. All of the clinical, and I'll tell you a bit more detail in a minute, but all of the clinical processes, the structure, the marketing, the communications, the advice on insurance, the bookkeeping, the day-to-day bits that you need in order to make a healthcare service like Growing Hope work on the ground, we provide and support with as a national charity. So it's this three-way collaboration between the local church, and actually that should say local churches. So we know that we're partnering here with Holy Trinity. I don't know actually how you say it's Heworth. There we go. I was about to completely butcher that, so I'm very going to be very awkward. So we know that we're partnering with Holy Trinity Heworth, but the idea is that other churches get involved, and that could be members of other church congregations, it could be other church leaders, it could be anyone representing their local church but becoming part of that trustee board. So we try and get at least 3 churches represented on that trustee board that becomes Growing Hope York, and then that is the local clinic. So that's the kind of third person in the collaboration. So us as a national charity, and I've got a team of people who provide support. The local clinic Growing Hope York, which is made up of at governance level, a trustee board of trustees that involves a chair of trustees, somebody doing admin, finance, fundraising, and a few other bits and pieces that I will give you more information about later when we're telling you about how to volunteer. And then the third collaborator is the local church, and there's other local churches. Okay, this is super small, so you probably actually can't read it. But this gives a quick summary for you, and we need to update our slides so that people can actually see it, of what the different 3 people in the partnership in that collaboration do. So as a national charity, we provide all the coaching and support for setup, but not just for setup, we kind of provide ongoing support for our clinic managers and our clinics across the country. So our clinic managers, oh dear, what was I?
No, it's fine. No, no, no.
Okay, cool. I'm so sorry. Our clinic managers are meet every other week, so they meet together and they meet with people from our national team to get regular support in terms of their fundraising and finances and general day-to-day stuff. We provide a kind of model for policy insurance, governance stuff. We provide £6,500 of seed funding to new local clinics, and we support with what it looks like to champion accessibility. So something I haven't mentioned yet is a really important thing is that, we believe Jesus brings hope, and we believe that he sees and loves and values each and every single young person, child, adult who comes to our clinics. And for that reason, the clinic manager who's working in that local clinic doesn't just work in the week, but part of their week is working on a Sunday. And their role on a Sunday is all around championing accessibility. So enabling families to be able to come along to church if they'd like to, so inviting them along, but then training and supporting, modelling to children's teams, recruiting volunteers, so that actually church is as accessible as possible for families that would like to come on Sunday. So part of what we do at Growing Hope nationally is provide more training and support and resources for what that can look like in the local context and help the clinic managers as they develop that. And then the local church jointly appoints that clinic manager, offers the space. So here it's likely that we will be using this space behind me, so we'd have a kind of like mats that we can put out, we'd have some screens that we can use so that we can block off this space and use it as a therapy room. Or for young children, we may use some of the under 5 space at the back. But the idea is you have the space within the church, and then you have open arms to enable those families to come along. There's provision of things like the space, and also then, the printer and stuff like that that's from the local church. And then the church agrees to give £7,500 of seed funding, of funding each year in order to support the local charity. And that can be from a combination of like the church and other churches, or just from the main partnership church. So that depends on the situation. But that funding contributes to the budget, which I'll show you in a minute, just so you can have an idea of what it looks like. And then the local trustee board essentially are responsible for the governance of that local charity. I find it helpful to imagine like if you draw a line and you have the things like making sure the charitable objectives are met. And the charitable objectives are what makes you a charity, but they're essentially things like, they just say, providing free therapy for children and people with additional needs and their families in partnership with the church in the local area, but also like sharing hope in Jesus with individuals who are interested in that, providing pastoral care and support for families who come along to clinic. I think there's one, and offering prayer. So they're the charitable objectives. So the trustees are responsible for those things at a governance level, and essentially that means that every year they have to report to the Charity Commission and be like, yeah, we're doing what we've told you we're doing, we know that the finances are okay, we know that we're following the policy, and so you then, as a trustee board, kind of sign off the budget and that kind of thing, but anything below that line is what the clinic manager is responsible for. So the trustees will sign off the budget and be like, great, off you go, clinic manager. The clinic manager can then be like, great, you've signed off for me to have a freelance counsellor to help us. So often we add other therapists quite quickly, well, or kind of depending on funding. But for example, somebody providing 3 hours of therapy a week is around £5,000 a year. So you could recruit a freelance counsellor for an additional £5,000 a year. So it depends on funding, but that kind of enables you to build up the service. So the clinic manager is responsible for doing the day-to-day things in the clinic, but the trustees are there to kind of support those functions. And then encouraging and supporting that clinic manager with things like the fundraising. So the fundraising is kind of, we've got a pretty consistent fundraising strategy that we run across our local Growing Hope clinics that we have seen work well in our different clinics and different contexts. We're always flexible to context, but also we've got 3 key fundraising points in the year which enable us to raise the funds, and we ask that the trustees and other volunteers are involved in enabling those things to happen in order that we can get the income that we need to run the local clinic. That's all the different things on my table. So, this is the way that it works. So children get referred into our clinic, and those referrals can come from anywhere. So often it's parents who have realised that we exist and know that there is a big need, and they're like, yeah, I really want that service. But sometimes also we see a lot of children and families who don't actually know that they can access support. They've kind of gone beyond the point of like knowing that they really need help, and actually they've given up a bit on finding somewhere that they can get any help for their child, or they're stuck in that waiting list and don't know where to turn to. So often referrals also come from family support workers, from SENCOs, from other healthcare professionals who are like, this family could really do with some support. I've had some amazing schools in the past where their children they've had a lot of poverty in their family, and we know that there is actually a big link between additional needs and poverty. And they've had families where they've literally paid for their bus fare so that they can get themselves to clinic and be able to access the free support that we're offering. So anyone can make a referral online. Growing Hope/make-a-referral. Obviously, you have to have parental consent to make a referral. It has on a couple of occasions happened where the parents stand up and been like, I don't know why I'm here. And I'm like, oh gosh, your Senko clearly hasn't talked to you about the fact that they've made a referral or it's slipped your mind. So families get the give consent. And then they get an assessment, so we have an hour-long assessment with our families in whatever profession that is in, and we look at, all those things that child does every day, and we work out functionally what are the challenges for them, what is impacting their day-to-day life. And then we talk and we agree with the family 3 goals that we can be working on within our sessions. The child then gets an assessment report. That assessment report has a very set Growing Hope format, so it's only a 3-page report with other resources, so it's not too overwhelming for families. But that front page has strengths and challenges, recommendations, and then goals. And then we always write those 3 goals down. We always send a WhatsApp video to families so that they have a video that tells them very quickly in like 2 minutes what are the recommendations, what can they be doing, what are the goals that we're going to work on together in our 6-week block of therapy. And that means that if English is a second language, or if you only have 2 minutes to watch a video rather than to read a report, or if you struggle with literacy, then actually everybody is able to access that information still. And often schools might watch that more than read a report if a parent stands there and plays it to a teacher. And then you get therapy sessions, so those therapy sessions obviously dependent on whichever therapist you've recruited that is seeing the child, but you have 6 sessions, 40-minute sessions, which are in the church space. With the church space thing is for lots of different reasons, so we do that because we want families to know that they're welcome in this space. It's more efficient, we can see more families if we do a kind of clinic-based service, and also it means that it's really easy for us to be like, you're welcome back here on Sunday if you'd like to come. We can offer prayer without like feeling like we can't because we're in somebody else's environment. So children work on those 3 goals for those 6 sessions. Parents always attend sessions, again, because we believe that that is part of kind of enabling that child to receive the support that they need. And that means that we're equipping parents in order to carry on at home. So part of enabling the whole family to join in is that it's not just something we're doing to a child. Every session that I'm in, I'll be saying, oh, Sarah, like, come over here, why don't you have a try? So this is how you put your hands on Johnny's hips when he's on the gym ball, and this is how you can help him to bounce. And if we bounce and we stop, and then if we wait and say ready, steady, he might then be able to say go or give you eye contact so that we can carry on bouncing. So all the time I'm involving the parent in what it is that I'm doing, in order that then when they go home and carry on, they're actually able to bring those things into day-to-day life. Then at the end of that, you have a discharge summary, so parents get a 1-page discharge summary, and then they go away for 3 months at least, and then after 3 months they can come back for a review phone call, and then they can get 4 further sessions. Often there's a bit of a waiting list, so it will depend on how we're doing with the waiting list as to when that is. In terms of our waiting list, we try and keep our waiting list between 3 and 6 months, and that's generally the aim of the clinic managers and the trustees, is to like either be seeking more funding or doing, there's lots of different strategies you can do, doing more groups so that we can keep that waiting list down and then give further support if we need to. This is a typical week of a clinic manager, just checking how long I've been going on for. So if you have a 5-day week clinic manager, the first day they'd have clinic and fundraising admin time from home. I mean, this is obviously flexible, this is just an example. It doesn't have to be on these specific days. But then they have half a day with the church staff team, half a day doing our Growing Hope groups, so things like when dreams change, siblings, circle of security that we've talked about. Then you have a day of clinic. So we have around 6 sessions a day. That's the expectation on our therapists. They could do 6 sessions in a day, seeing around 10 children. So you see some groups and some individual children on a one-to-one basis. You have clinic on a morning slot, and then management time from home, and then you've got half a day on the Sunday for then supporting families and children with additional needs. So there's lots of chunks of admin time within that, because we've realised that it's a lot of work to be a clinic manager. They're essentially, the way that the Growing Hope model works is that actually we're saying to churches, you can start this with just one person who is able to then do all the bits and pieces that are required to get this clinic up and running. But that means that we've got to make sure they've got time for the things involved in enabling that local charity to run. I won't give you loads of detail on this, but this is an example of the initial budget, and just to show you mainly that actually there are lots of different income streams, and we see this patterned throughout all the different clinics that we run. So you expect some income from regular giving, from one-off gifts, from gift aid. Gift aid gives you 25% extra to any gift. Donations from other organisations is the seed funding from us nationally and the money from the church here. And then grant income, so 30k a year of grant income. It feels like a lot of money, but actually it's pretty achievable in terms of accessing local grants and support. And we know that there are trusts like the Benefit Trust who will give money to, we're pretty sure, to all of our clinics. They've supported all of our clinics so far, so it'd be surprising if they didn't. But they give 3 years of funding, not the whole thing, but a good chunk of funding that enables us to support our families. And then in there you also see income from events, but that often cancels out the income, the expenditure on events, and then at an event you'd often ask people to give regularly. We create 3-year budgets. Our financial year is January to December, and then every month we send reports as a national charity, so we have a bookkeeper nationally, and the local charity always gives money to us nationally in order that we provide that bookkeeping service to you guys. But what that means is that we provide reports on how you're doing against your budget every month. And I was talking about having 3 key fundraising points in the year. So those 3 key fundraising points are, there's always a spring fundraiser, so a fundraising event where you gather people in a space. It can look however you want it to, but it could be a quiz, it could be a dinner, it could be whatever you want. But you always have a sit-down moment where people hear from somebody at the front, they hear from a parent, they have a chance to fill in a giving form, and often that's how we get our regular giving or one-off gifts. And then the second point of the year is our big gift campaign at Christmas, which is a match funding campaign, which often we get some grant support for, and some to have a match fund essentially, and then you raise an amount in the week. And then the third point in the year is our community fundraising. So we're actually starting to think about our community fundraising now for next year. So we're looking at, okay, what community fundraising could it be? Like there's the York Marathon, there's a York 10K, there's inflatable challenges. So it's getting people to sign up and do their own fundraising essentially, which is the third bit of income, which often supports that local charity. And then expenditure-wise, so you've got the main expenses, obviously the therapists themselves, so we match NHS funding, and we do that because it's really important to have high-quality therapists and be providing a good quality of therapy services. So that means that's the kind of biggest outlay. We have freelance costs, so I was talking earlier about it's around £5,000 a year to add an additional therapist. Often you start with adding a bit of freelance money to have an administrator, so somebody who provides 2 to 3 hours of admin support each week to that clinic manager, around £15 an hour, enables that clinic manager to have support with things like the waiting list, with getting referrals, all of that kind of thing. You can see there's bookkeeping, finance support, volunteers expenses, general admin costs, clinic setup costs, a bit of fundraising costs, and then giving. So we ask that each local clinic gives £500 a month, which is around 10%, actually a bit less, back to us as a national charity after a year of being set up. And we do that because we want to be courageous, innovative and generous in our approach. So we want to be enabling us as a national charity to set up more clinics and to support more individuals and families across the country. So we're nearly there, and then you can ask some questions. I'm so sorry, it's a lot of information. Outcome measurements. Outcomes are really important. We want to make sure that we are demonstrating the effectiveness of the services that we offer. So that means we measure the impact of our services. So we use something called the goal attainment scale to measure the impact of our services. We do that for every child and all of their different goals. And then we use feedback forms as well to gather information from parents and carers every year you have to do an annual report. So nationally, we kind of pull all that information together for the local clinic, including financial information, but also information in terms of, you know, how the clinic's been doing, how many percentage of goals have been met, that kind of thing. So, how can you get involved? And then I think we do questions after that. There are lots of different ways you can get involved. You could be a trustee. We're going to need trustees as we set up this clinic here in York. So if you're someone who has some, you know, hidden talents, or if you're someone who just has a passion for seeing this happen and is like open to training and support from us, then, you know, please do get in touch, because we'd really love to hear from you. We need your trustees. I mentioned some of the roles earlier, so we need a chair, a finance trustee, an admin trustee, so someone who can just get stuff done, minute take, all of that kind of thing. We need someone who can help with fundraising and event kind of support. It's helpful to have someone who has experience in either school stuff or networks or healthcare, and then there's always an ex officio role, so someone from the team here will be a part, staff team here will be a part of the trustee board, but then also we want to make sure that we cover the roles, cover some people from different churches as well. So if you think it's something you can help with, then come and talk to me, or just tick the box and you can find out more about it. Community champions, so there are loads of different ways you could champion Growing Hope. If you're like, I'd love to champion Growing Hope, I can't be a trustee, but actually I could go and talk about Growing Hope in my local school, I can share flyers, I can share information, I could go get a fundraising event going at this place, then that can be a good opportunity. And there are some flyers as well that say, like, could you be a champion, which gives more information. And then volunteer, so you can sign up to volunteer for us at some point. So that can include things like helping support with kids coming along to a group, so when Dreams Change is running, looking after children when Dreams Change is running. It could be things like volunteering with fundraising support, so that's a really big need for the local clinics. Often it's like having some people, I didn't mention that earlier, I should have mentioned that, to write grant applications. So we kind of, as a national charity, provide a list each half term to our clinics saying, here are some grant applications that you can be applying for, here's all the resources you need to apply for them, and here's how you write a grant application, here's how you do the process, off you go. So we need volunteers who are like, yeah, I've got a bit of time, I can look through all the resources you have. Like often it's a bit of, you know, kind of copy and pasting, making sure you're filling in the questions that a grant provider has asked, but that can be a really important role. And then other bits and pieces around helping with setting up the clinic or volunteering on a Sunday, all of those kind of things. So what I'd love us to do, and you can have a moment to chat to someone next to you as well, because I feel like, you know, I've talked to you for ages. If you have a phone and can scan the QR code, I would love you to scan the QR code. If you can't, don't worry, I've got my laptop at the back and you can come and see me at the end and I can give it to you. But what would be amazing is if everyone could do this now, because what it means is that as we go into setting up the clinic, then we're able to contact you and tell you about what's happening, when it's going to happen. We can tell you about the different roles that we need, the different people that we're looking for, or we can hear from you in terms of what you might be interested in. So if you scan that QR code or go to there, it's a simple form, but it just gives you a chance to tell us if you want more information about it, or if there's a particular thing that you might be interested in. And yeah, if the QR code isn't working for you, then you can come and fill it out with me at the end.
Great, thank you very much. If you think you can't scan a QR code, but you have a smartphone, you can scan a QR code. Just get your camera out, and it should automatically then come on the little yellow thing, you can press the button. So I believe in you. You can do it. No, thank you so much. That was really, really helpful. It was, yeah, like you can see how much work goes in, you know, behind the scenes and everything else. So thank you for kind of taking us through that. It's really helpful to have an idea about how the clinic works, you know, like in detail, as well as the big picture stuff that we've been hearing as well. So thank you. I was thinking, if it's all right, if we have like a 5-minute break,
absolutely,
can you have a tea or coffee and think about any questions I have?
Perfect.
Yeah, lovely, great. So scan the QR code. get some more cake, and then we'll have time for questions in about 5 minutes or so. We're going to start back in a couple of minutes. If you do want to come and see your coffee or some more cake, now is the moment.
know I've got some of these from back anyway. Some box tin actually,
Okay, ladies and gents, hopefully, well, I say you refreshed. Hopefully you had a little chance to have a bit of a chat and maybe some questions that come to mind. So this is your chance to ask CEO and founder Naomi Fox questions, any questions, all questions, life, university, everything, or just growing home related, that's fine too.
Yeah, I can't promise I'll answer them all, but fire away. Someone can be brave, yeah, go for it.
So I'm going to try and repeat that just for the benefit of people watching online. Hello people online, by the way. Thank you for joining us. So Adele's question was, can you repeat it for me?
A typical church building like is how easy is it to run it in a space like this?
So how easy is it to run a clinic in a space like this in a typical church building?
Yeah, great question. Yes, so our churches, some of them are more geared to have like community rooms and that kind of thing, but quite a few of our churches are churches where people come into the main church, pass the pews, pass the chairs, come to a space, do their therapy within the space. So yeah, I think as therapists we're generally used to having to be quite flexible. I've done many a session in a kind of school corridor where I've had a couple of meters of space. So actually having a space where you could block it off safely with screens or whatever actually means that you can, once you've brought people into a space and into your area, you're then able to kind of contain it and keep it safe for the families who are coming along. And that tends to work. I mean, you always do have children who find it difficult, more challenging to be in a space where there's lots of stuff around. But what you can do is do things like, for example, your under fives areas could be quite good to be used as like waiting areas. So if a family came early, they could be in that place, you could have lots of sensory toys. Then when the therapist is ready, then you kind of collect them and bring them through. We often, if you're lone working ever, then we've had a policy where families actually can wait outside the building. So if they need to wait outside the building, until their session, so their parents are kind of keeping them safe before they're in a space where they can move around, we can do that. Also, we can think about door use. So sometimes in a lot of our churches, the families will come in like a side door into a space that is being used. So for example, if we're using this space, I don't know, but it may be that we use a side door, they can then wash their hands in the toilet, use the toilet, they need to come to their kind of space. Hopefully that answers it.
Thank you, I think that's great. Any other questions? Otherwise I've got one.
I'll ask one, sorry.
Yes, Helen.
Do you assess every child that you get a referral for, or do you have a kind of system, like a triage system, or do you just assess anyone who comes through the door?
So yeah, the question was, do you assess everyone that you get a referral to, or is there some sort of system or cut-off or anything like that?
So the only cut-off, or the main cut-off, is the area thing. So the charity objectives have an area, so it might say within New York area, it might be as vague as that, or it might be a bit more specific. In London, our clinics are named by boroughs, so if someone doesn't live in one of those named boroughs, we don't see them unless there's an exemption from trustees. So that's a very clear cut-off, so when we receive a referral, we check, are they in our catchment area? Because there's such a need for therapy, people refer from,
that's why I'm picturing the list. I'm just thinking on my head the list of children that you could end up with.
Yeah, no, totally. And then I think then really it's if they're appropriate for therapy or not. Generally, yes, we do assess most children who meet the criteria in any other way. There are some children who I've seen for an assessment and then been actually all I need to do is I can do a report, I can give you some advice. And then I call it a handover session. So I do one session, I give them all the strategies, I show them what I need in the report, and then I send them on their way because they don't actually need intervention from us. But that's more rare than, most children do need the support. And I think that's where the thing of doing groups comes in. So we do a lot of groups as much as we can to support children. So thinking about, this children's group with children who have autism. I've also got a group with some slightly like more verbal children where I'm looking at their attention and regulation. But what you can do is look at a referral list. Our referral form is relatively in detail, so our experienced therapists can look at those referrals and be like, oh, okay, like these are the kind of needs of these children, so they might work in a group together, so I'll assess them and then see if I can provide them with therapy as a group. And because we're involving parents, like often it might be that actually that's another potential volunteer role, so it might be something that a therapist runs with a volunteer who comes in to just support and be another pair of hands, and then you've got your parents who are there as well to enable that group to happen.
Thank you.
Tom?
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I hope it can be successful in York. The question is about resources, really. You talk about professional-led clinics and so on, OTs, physiotherapists and so on. Given that the waiting lists are so long in the NHS, because they don't have the resource, where do you find the resource?
So, question about resources. Given that waiting lists for the NHS are so long because they don't have resources, where do Growing Hope get their resources from?
Great question. I think part of the problem with the NHS is not just resources in like human resource. That is definitely a problem, but it's also around like financial resource and service provision kind of resource. So one of the advantages of having Growing Hope is that we obviously, and the support nationally, but we do the fundraising ourselves, so the resource in terms of financial resource to enable us to recruit the therapists comes from, within the church, within our communities, within the grants, within the community fundraising, etc. And we found that to be a proven model, like we've been able to raise the funds in our other local clinics, and currently don't have a reason that we wouldn't be able to raise it here. It is definitely a challenge to get the right therapists for the roles, and that's something that we're looking at as a national charity in terms of how do we enable that to come about more easily. You'll see on some of the seats you've got a "Could you be our next therapist" flyer, so please do take one of those and pass it to a therapist that you know, if you know any therapists who are Christians. One of the things that we've done is we've developed a Christian therapist forum, so we've set up a forum for therapists of any type who are Christians all across the UK. We run events online every 6 weeks. We do kind of webinar, and then we've got a kind of bigger national event online in November, and then an in-person event coming up in April. So we've been developing and pushing that as a charity in order that we can therefore start to have our own network of Christian therapists who know about Growing Hope and who we can be like, we've got a job here, anyone want to come and work in this place? And I think the other advantage of being in York is that actually you've got the university which has lots of therapy courses within it. York is one of my options, I didn't come in, but it's one of my options on the side. I'm so sorry. I did live in Northumberland for a bit. I've done a bit of living this bit of the country, but ish, a bit more north. But I think there's also potential by having those links that people stay around after being at uni, and that means that you have got therapists who are potentially here. I know that we also have interest from therapists, like people get in touch with us all the time, so we also get the chance to kind of connect people in to what it is that we're doing. And then we pray. We believe that God provides for what we need, and I think sometimes we've found that we've had to wait for longer than we'd like to wait for the therapists that we end up getting, but we've always ended up having the people that we need in the places that we need them, and we've really seen clinics grow and thrive. And I think often with the freelance positions, so you have a clinic manager who runs the clinic, and often that can be kind of a bit of the biggest role to recruit for, because there are lots of different aspects. That role is kind of a band 7, 8 level in the NHS, which is quite a high level. There's an expectation, like there would be at that level, to be able to have an understanding of what a budget looks like, how you develop your service, how you manage your team and all of that kind of thing. But there are lots of transferable skills, and we nationally provide lots of equipping so that those individuals can thrive within their role. But then once you recruit for other roles, the other roles are more likely to be a bit more of a bog standard therapy role that you're just praying for, you're offering to pray for families as well. So there's still an occupational requirement to be a Christian, but it might be a 2-day-a-week role, a 3-day-a-week role as a counsellor, as a speech therapist, as a music therapist, and they often come about by people expressing interest, and then the trustees being like, is this therapy we consider? How can we get funding for it? What does that look like? That kind of thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Rachel?
I love hearing about what you do and how you've replicated it in different areas. I'd love to know, as you set up a new one, and as you've done that a few times, are there any particular barriers that are a recurring feature, or are there different challenges in each one, or is there anything that you've learned so far from the ones you've set up? Which are the main kind of barriers before it gets going?
So, questions about other clinics that have been set up and whether or not there are similar barriers each time, or whether maybe they're all unique and different, have there been challenges that you faced numerous times, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, again, really great question. I think the therapist thing has been a challenge in some locations, and the kind of having to wait longer than we've wanted to wait to find the right people for the right roles, and that's why we've put in place the kind of Christian Therapist Forum, the network of therapists that we're now really building. So the charity is 7 years old, and in these 7 years, there's definitely been a lot of learning. I think as we've set the clinics up, we've realised lots of things around processes and procedures, really, that have made a big difference to each of the clinics and the way that they work. So we now have a very hefty clinic manager handbook, which essentially has everything that you need to know, we hope, about the clinic, about running the clinic. It gives examples of, everything, report templates, emails for waiting lists, emails for, you name it, thank you cards for Christmas, like templates, the list of what it looks like to write your notes, how the system works, how you set up finances, how you understand the budget, how the reporting works, So that handbook has all the information that clinic manager needs, and we provide induction and training around that, so that both and every trustee gets a copy of that handbook. So the trustees all know the kind of nitty-gritty of how everything works alongside that clinic manager, so that they can kind of champion that clinic manager and support them in their role. So that's been a big bit of work that we've done in the last couple of years that I think has made a big difference for our clinic managers as they start and get going, because it means that they know that they've got everything that they need. I think they're probably the main challenges. I think what we found has worked really well, and actually one of the changes we've made is the thing of making sure that we involve not just one church, but other individuals from local churches. So in our original clinics, we just set up with one church. We didn't really think, not like deliberately, but we weren't thinking about involving other churches. But what we found is that that's worked really, really well, because where other local churches are involved, your network of people for volunteering, for sharing about the clinic, for fundraising, for inviting their friends along to events, for doing lots of bits and pieces to do with Growing Hope is just so much bigger. And in places like High Wycombe, that's worked really well. They've got, I think, 3 or 4 churches represented on their trustee board, but actually they've got clinic champions in lots of churches in High Wycombe, and random churches will do fundraising events for them, or someone will suddenly be running a concert, or they'll invite someone along to their church who needs support, and then they come back to the clinic, and so it's amazing to see that work well, and that's why we're putting that into the role. Not at all.
Martin?
We've heard about like group sessions and everything, but basically my question is with children who've got autism, and I know it's been said about preparing things like this, is there options of like, instead of being in a room, of it being like a one-to-one session?
So, question about, I've heard lots about group sessions, and the question is whether one-to-one sessions are available as well.
Yeah, one-to-one sessions are definitely available. So a majority of our work, it's kind of a balance. There's quite a lot of one-to-one work that happens, and then also quite a lot of group work that happens, and it's dependent on the child's needs. So actually what we find for a lot of children with autism, what they need is a quieter environment to learn those social interaction skills. and that group for them might be a pair. So often our speech therapists often do pairs of groups for Lego therapy, which is the specific type of therapy intervention that often speech therapists use, and that can be a good way of building social skills. I've done groups before where I've had a family group who have had 3 children with autism, and actually mum has said, I can't come and bring all my children one at a time, can you see them together? And me and speech therapists work together to do a kind of joint group with occupational therapy and speech therapy, and that works really well. But then some groups, like the ones I'm running at the moment, are 4 children who all have autism with their parents, but actually what we're doing as part of their therapy goals is around supporting them with their social interaction and with their transition and being able to manage in that environment with other children. So it depends on the child's needs, but yeah, we do also do one-to-one sessions. But every session, any therapy intervention that we do always has those 3 goals that we're working on. So we're always working on something that's functional, that is enabling them to improve or participate or engage in something that they find tricky in their everyday life.
Thank you. Any last questions?
I've just got one more, just to ask, what stage are you at with the York? Is this just an idea? Is it something that it's starting to happen? Where are you at?
So the question was, what stage are we at with the York Clinic? Do you want that?
Yeah, I mean, I can start in a minute. So we've signed, actually that was something I was going to mention earlier, and then I forgot. We've signed a set-up agreement, which basically means we're committed to the national charity, Hojanty is committed as a church to work together to set up a Growing Hope clinic and to look at what that looks like. So we're going to start looking for trustees, then have the first trustee meeting, apply for charity status, recruit therapists. So that is the trajectory that we're on. The way that it works is we've actually, one of the other things that we've improved and worked on is we've now got, they're much more legal, which means that they're really lengthy and a bit tricky to read, but we've got a set-up agreement and a collaboration agreement which talk about the agreements between the different people who are involved in running a Growing Hope clinic. But it just means that from everyone's really clear because it's all really laid out in terms of how it works between the 3 partners. But yeah, as far as we're concerned, we're going for it and praying and trusting that God's going to bring the right people to enable us to get Growing Hope York on its way.
Yeah, absolutely. We met as a PCC to discuss this. It came up in normal meetings, and then Naomi very kindly zoomed in and answered lots of questions. And we discussed it as a PCC and agreed that this is where we feel God has been leading us as a church, and that we wanted to take this step of faith in faith that other churches would also think, this is a great thing to be part of, because we know that on our own, this isn't something that we'll be able to do as a church. We're blessed in many, many ways, but providing trustees and volunteers and X amount of funds every year is not something we would be capable of. I can't run that many marathons. My knees wouldn't take it. So we know we need other churches, we need other people, and that's what we're praying that God will provide. But yes, we have signed that paperwork and we've taken that step.
Yeah, and I think that's in terms of filling in that QR code form if you can, or grabbing me and doing it on my laptop, at the end is really helpful because then we can keep in touch with you all and let you know where we're up to. But also I know that, I know Mike's in contact with other churches and people, so we'll be working on who can be a part of the next steps.
Any final questions? Lovely. Well, in that case, all I want to say is, Naomi, thank you so much for coming up. It's been just a real pleasure to have you, to hear more about Growing Hope, to hear where it's come from, your dreams and hopes for it, to see how it works really practically as well. And do be praying about how you and your churches can get involved. You can grab me, chat to me, send me an email. I'd love to talk to you more about that. And if I don't know the answers, then I'll be asking Naomi.
Yeah. No, amazing. And if you're online and have questions as well, and do, if you have my email, drop them an email, or we're at info@growinghope.org.uk, but if you go on the website, it's really easy to find us, so you can drop us a question.
Great. Well, I'm going to pray to finish off. You're going to be back, aren't you, with a table full of resources and things, so you can still grab Naomi as you go out and have a chat to her and grab some things off the table. But let me pray as we finish. Lord God, thank you so much for Growing Hope. Thank you for the vision that you gave, Naomi. Thank you for all that you've done over these last 7 years to build this charity and to open these clinics. And Lord, we pray that you have your hand over the York Clinic as well, that you would provide the right people at the right times for all those different roles and all those different things that are needed to get this clinic up and running. And Lord, we pray for all those who will be blessed and impacted by the work of Growing Hope. Thank you for them, and Lord, we just pray for the work that's going to be happening, that you would have your hand upon it, that you would bless many, many people, and that you would bless those people who make it happen as well. Amen. Amen. Thank you very much for coming.